Well, many South African businesses are worried about how to use their supply chains to remain profitable and competitive in a world stricken by economic slowdown, rising unemployment and high levels of debt as well. Joining us for a look at the supply chain and management of it as an enabler of growth is Mike Fanucchi. He's Executive of Business Development at Barloworld Logistics. Mike, thanks so much for joining us at the desk this afternoon. Well, as I've said in the intro there, very much focus on efficiencies right now by businesses who are looking to remain profitable, to remain competitive. Where do we stand right here in South Africa in terms of companies and their strategies for growth and supply chain competitiveness specifically?
Well, supply chain competitiveness is key to many companies, and international companies always dealing in South Africa, trading in South Africa and operating here, always put huge pressure on service providers to maintain that efficiency. And when you look at South Africa as a supply chain country, we rank in the top 25 in the world in terms of supply chain capability as a country. And people do complain that supply chain, the cost of running supply chains in this country is very expensive, but that's also due to our geographic density, to the proximity to markets, which really is a challenge. But in terms of the way that we do it within that geographic density in this country, we do it pretty well.
How's that capability translating to reality?
Well, that capability is translating to reality in terms of rands per kilograms of what's moved in the country. And so, we're under constant pressure to reduce that rands per ton or rands per kilogram of product moved, be it chicken, be it oil, be it your lubricants, etc., etc. So I think that with that, it's not just sort of running a truck from A to B. It's that whole information flow that one would have, and looking at the sort of transparency of the supply chain, having the visibility, knowing what's happening on when the demand is coming, when the customer requires stock optimization, looking at all the areas where there could be waste in a supply chain and making sure that you reduce that.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Mike,
where... Yes, Lindsay.
Sorry to interrupt. You talk about, we talk about the economic slowdown as being hampering the supply chain industry, but you also highlight a few other things. Labour cost, number one, that's so pertinent at the moment. Bureaucracy, number two, where you can maybe expand on that one. Infrastructure shortcomings and other competitive challenges. So apart from the economic slowdown, which is a worldwide phenomenon, and particularly in South Africa at the moment, you've got all these other things. And of course, we've had the transport strike recently, so it's a tough job you've got.
No, it's an incredibly tough job, and in order to, customers are, they understand for a very short space of time that there's a strike or that there's a labour problem, but ultimately they want their products delivered to the market. And, the supply chain companies enabling that delivery to the market, and quite often, one has to look at, sometimes a client will look at the cheapest option to get their products delivered. But when it comes to the moments where there's labour unrest, the lowest cost solution isn't the most effective solution for the client in order for them to compete with their supply chain. And that has been seen through the recent Satawu strike that we had in the country, where certain clients saw companies being able to operate through that period as a competitive edge. Yeah. So, their normal supply chains may be slightly more expensive than their competitors, but looking at the total cost, it becomes a lot cheaper.
To what extent, though, do those factors that Lindsay outlined earlier compromise South Africa's position as that, trading and logistics gateway into Africa?
Well, that would compromise us. South Africa's got great infrastructure still, despite that. And we're looking at, if you look at what Transnet is planning to spend in the next 7 years or so, there's 300 billion spent, 200 billion of which will go into the rail infrastructure. All of that is designed to try and make South Africa cheaper as an economy to work in, to try and reduce the cost of doing business in this country. That's the objective of Transnet. And so if we are able to get those efficiencies to move more tonnage for less rands, we are going to become more efficient. We're going to have a springboard that we can actually then move further north into Africa from South Africa. And if you look at that, we look at South Africa as a springboard into Africa, it's not as if we're going to transport everything from South Africa into Nigeria, for argument's sake, or into DRC. It's about having that capability, that access to information, the systems, which really differentiates us, I believe, from many other African countries, certainly, and many other international countries. Is the right port to bring product in from Dar es Salaam into DRC, is to understand those supply chains from different areas. And that's really what we have to try and maintain with the capability that we've got, so that we can see that as a springboard into Africa. It doesn't mean that we have to move every gram or every ton from the port of Durban or port of Ngqura or Cape Town, etc.
Mike, you talk about South Africa having a great infrastructure, but of course there's so many companies that we speak to on CNBC Africa Power Lunch every single day, and they're saying, well, we are now expanding our operations into the rest of Africa, north of our borders. And it must be difficult for you. I mean, once you get outside the borders of South Africa, then the infrastructure completely changes. Again, another challenge for you. It
is a challenge, and it's about being dynamic and be able to respond to those challenges and understand what can be done in those countries, and looking at innovative ways of moving product. So air may be the way to do it. I still remember years ago being in Angola, and it seemed to make absolutely no sense, but they were flying jet loads of fuel into deep Angola because that was the way to make the business work up there. So one has to look at innovative ways of operating in the countries, and I think that is something that South Africans are particularly good at, is looking at doing things differently, not sort of following the tried and tested methodologies, but looking at different ways. And that's what's going to define success in Africa, I think, for a lot of us, our companies in this country.